Monsieur Anber.
I would like to toast you with a cup of tea, but I've got ice water here. So I'm on the road, and the best I can do is ice water at this time. How are you?
I'm doing good. Where exactly on the road are you, Russ?
Right now, physically speaking, I'm in Burlington, Ontario. I'm at my friend's place where I'm going to be going across the street to his one of the best pool rooms and snooker rooms that I've ever been into, called Shooterville. In Burlington, Ontario, one of the nicest rooms you'll ever go into. And I'm in town for the pro debut this Saturday night at I think it's called the CAA Center. It used to be the Hershey Center in Mississauga, for the debut of former amateur standout Joshua Fraser, who's making his pro debut this Saturday. So that's why I'm in town. And then Monday, off to NYC for Lomachenko.
Lomachenko, which is going to be, of course, a topic on the podcast today, because there's a lot of action in the lightweight division since last Saturday and now up until the next few weeks. It's like all of the big names pretty much are fighting outside of Ryan Garcia in a span of about 3-4 weeks. So there's a lot to get to on the podcast. We're going to touch on the upcoming fights this weekend, which includes Gervonta Davis against late replacement Isaac Cruz, somewhat late replacement. Also, we're going to have, of course, Jojo Diaz against Devin Haney. But we got to touch on first Teofimo-Lopez, who last fought your guy, Vasiliy Lomachenko, over a year ago now. And that was the big fight, of course, that put Lopez on the map to many of the mainstream fans of boxing, if you will. The hardcore fan base knew about him, and he had a heck of a performance against Vasiliy Lomachenko in a razor-thin fight. We talked a lot about in the past, Russ, on this podcast, how there should have been a rematch. We'll get to that point today and tonight, I'm sure, as well. But the fight against George Kambosos, who was a live dog, if people knew George Kambosos and the training he had and the preparation, and despite the fact that his record, of course, didn't really have many big wins compared to Lopez's win against Lomachenko, there was a lot of people who thought he could give him a good fight. Lopez, though, and some supporters thought he was going to knock Kambosos out early. Lopez fought that way. There's a lot to get to with that fight, Russ. First and foremost, how surprised were you at the result based on Kambosos coming out with the decision win?
I'm not going to say I was in shock. I was not one of those who thought this was going to be the Lopez walkover that everybody expected, including himself, and his dad. And the reason I say that is because I got to see Kambosos and his team up close and in person when they were in the UK. And when I was over there with Usyk, I believe it was the Chisora fight, and they were on the undercard, and he won against Lee Selby, and I saw an action-packed fight. It was a good fight, and Kambosos really showed, the quick hands and the spurts and in fighting. And I thought, this kid's got something, and he's got some belief in himself as well. And everybody was telling me that, he struggled against Selby and Mickey Bay. And, they thought for that reason that he was going to be a massive underdog. And I think at one point, some of the odds makers had him at like 13-1 under, which is crazy when you think about how the mandatory challenger in the weight class could be a 13-1 underdog, right? That's almost insane when you think about it. Just goes to show you that sometimes what could be different levels. But like they say, odds makers don't always get it right, and they certainly didn't get it right this time. And I think it just goes to, this fight proved what happens when composure and a battle plan and respect for your opponent. And I'm not just talking about respect at the press conference. I'm talking respect in that he's a man who's been fighting his whole life, who knows how to fight and throw punches. You have to respect that. And I think when you don't, bad things happen. And bad things happen when you predict a first round knockout, and what happens, you end up, don't tell me that doesn't play on your psyche, where you've said you're going to knock somebody out in one round, whether it would have been Lopez or anybody else. You're going to knock somebody out in one round, and then you get dropped in the first round. That certainly plays on you, and you're out, wow, that's like 180-degree swing, right? The pendulum went all the way over to the other side in that one. So, a hell of a fight. I mean, it was a hell of a fight, don't you think? I mean, they really.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, to me, this was one of the best bouts of the year, and we've had a lot of good ones. But what I love is when you have, it was like a skilled brawl. I thought, to me, this fight I enjoyed even more than the Wilder Fury fight, which a lot of people I know loved, and it's a different type of bout. But I think Lopez and Kambosos, the volume punching skill, but everybody, everything, especially on Lopez's side, was thrown with bad intentions, but there was a lot of ebb and flow in the fight, which made it really interesting. And it was still a close decision. But get to your point of the first round, to bring back the first round, Lopez comes out as if Kambosos was a complete novice, right? It would have worked against somebody who's in a lower class when you're fighting the 4, 6, 8 round bouts. But and of course he has enough power, Lopez, that he could hurt Kambosos. And it came a few rocky moments, but as soon as Kambosos was able to land that overhand and, knocked Lopez down and kind of gain his respect, I really think Lopez expended way too much energy in the first 3, 4 rounds trying to knock out and trying to take the personal side of the press conferences and bring it into the ring.
There's no doubt about that, Matt. You're right on. And I think a perfect example of that is, first of all, as the opponent, if you know the guy is coming out there throwing Hail Marys at you and wants to blast you halfway into the next hemisphere, you're watching for that stuff coming at you. Boop, boop, you're ducking, you're blocking, you're being careful, you're moving. You're aware of what's happening. I think you can tell any fighter, and this is the old adage, and everybody says this, but it doesn't seem like people learn by history, but it's when you least expect it that you get clipped. And I think a perfect example of that is Lopez's spectacular KO over Richard Comey. In what was a technical first round, being in there looking at it. Second round, he surprises him with a snapping overhand right. Comey goes down twice with one punch, if you will. Bang, and it's over. That's how deadly it was. It was a one-punch knockout because you weren't expecting it. That's not to say that you didn't train and practice to throw that punch, much the same way that Kambosos worked on throwing that right hand over the top. You work on it, but he just did it. He didn't look to knock down Teofimo. He just did it. Boom, slip, boom, came over the top. Just a natural boxing reaction, and it lands. And I don't know why, fighters, refuse to look at history and learn from history. But, it at least set the tone for a great fight. I think both fights, this one was a little bit more competitive in terms of Lopez started to try to come back in the fight after Kambosos had really run through the early rounds, and then scoring the knockdown, all suddenly changed the outlook of the fight. And I think that's why the third Fury-Wilder fight garnished so much interest, was because Fury was basically having his way with doing whatever he wanted. Early knockdown in the fight, I think third round knockdown, he's beating Wilder from pillar to post. Wilder visibly has nothing left after third round. All of a sudden, bang, he lands a shot on the temple and down goes Fury. Now, oh my gosh, it's crazy. So I think, and that's what happened in this fight, getting that knockdown in the 10th round, suddenly, boom, it turned it. That's always the exciting thing in boxing. But you're right. Technically speaking, it was a sound fight. It was a matchup of styles. It also was a matchup of strategy. Mental approach to the game, I think, was very important. I think Kambosos executed his battle plan to perfection. Little sidestep here, little walkabout here, little quick combination punching there, boom, 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 the jab. He looked busy. He looked energetic. And it seemed like he had an answer for what seemed to be a one-dimensional approach from Lopez, which was, the coming forward, taking it to him, he wanted so bad to nail him. And I think that played into what Kambosos' game plan was. And it played strongly in Kambosos' favor.
Yeah, but that being said, Russ, I think the part that we forget, because Kambosos was such a big win, a big performance, but it was still razor thin. Like, I believe Kambosos won the fight, but maybe not more than a point or two. And just, Lopez, if I thought, looking at this fight this past Saturday, clearly if he fought with a more disciplined approach, the way he did against Lomachenko, he can be an elite fighter. But
He's an elite fighter, for sure.
But it was very disappointing to see, and a lot of people believe that the Loma win got to his head, got to the entourage's head, his father in the corner. That was not the best advice I've ever heard in a professional championship bout in the corner in between rounds for Lopez. And the father had really seen like it was cheerleading, and we had a complete opposite kind of deal with Sean Porter's father in the previous week against Terrence Crawford, and the way kind of the corners were completely different. And unfortunately, we see this in the past sometimes as well. I remember Angel Garcia, Danny Garcia's father, a bit of the same type of mentality that it's always, yeah, you're winning, man, you're doing good, you're doing great, but not much advice. And I think they were really overstating how much they were ahead, because clearly they were not. And at the end, also the post-fight press comments, in the ring, I should say, wasn't championship class from Lopez.
It's not for me to speak on that. That's
what it's not from you, Russ. You've been in the corner many times. You were up against Loma's corner. You really think that was good advice?
No, I don't. But, I often see things that work for fighters. For one fighter, you'd say this is a disaster. You would never employ that with another fighter, but yet it works. Now, they have a win over Lomachenko and deserve it. They have a win over Lomachenko with the same team and same group that they had. Far be it for me to suddenly turn around and criticize, what they did after losing. That's so easy to suddenly throw stones after come on. Had he won, had he stopped Kambosos in the 10th, they would have been limited to what people would have said, and he won, and it would have almost been overshadowed. The fact that he lost, suddenly you're looking for reasons as to why he lost. He chose to have his father as his trainer. He chose to have him as the chief second. There's 100 things that were done in that corner that I would never do. And I'm sure that there are things that they wouldn't do if in my place, but that's the way they choose to work in their corner. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, no, I'm not happy with it. I think it could have been better. I think this was I think two things that were proven in this fight is that there is how important a corner can be and how it can get you out of trouble. And, it only has to win you an extra round or two. It's only got to win you just a little bit more, the one extra round that you needed to win a fight. It's 7-5. All you needed was the one extra rounds that separates you from a draw or a loss. So I believe a lot in how good a corner can work and how efficiently it can work. It was very good that cut did not happen earlier in the fight. It
was friend Miguel Diaz, the Cutman.
Yeah, that looked to be problematic in dealing with it in the corner. It was a huge gash. I don't know how many stitches it took, but it was a huge gash. How problematic that would have been had it occurred later in the fight. The other thing that I think this fight proved was we have a serious, I don't want to say problem, but misconception on how rounds and knockdowns should be scored. Everybody thinks that
you're not going to bring back 10-10 argument, please.
I'm sorry?
You're not going to go again on the 10-10 argument, right? Are you talking about now the fact that it should be 10-9 even if there's a knockdown?
Well, I'm saying, look, Matthew, there's a lot of ways of looking at that. 2 of the 3 judges in the first round scored the fight 10-9 in favor of Kambosos.
That's right. Despite him scoring a knockdown because he was getting, in the first minute and a half, beaten up by Lopez.
So do you realize that what that means, what they said with that scoring was that Kambosos was losing the round 10-9, but because of the knockdown, that saved him, and they gave him a 2-point swing the other way. So as a result of the knockdown, he got 2 points for the knockdown. So now let's say you're winning a round. If that's true, if you're winning the round and you're going to win the round 10-9 and you score a knockdown, why aren't you winning the round 10-7?
Wait. What? Repeat that again. Why aren't you winning the round 10-7?
I'll do it again. Do the math. It's simple math, okay? The judges perceived Lopez to be winning the round 10-9.
Well, maybe they should have scored a 10-8. No, but if there wasn't a knockdown.
For who?
Lopez.
Why? He didn't. It wasn't a 10-8 round without.
No, but listen. Let's look at his logic. If Kambosos scores a knockdown but doesn't get the extra point, they mean they really believe Lopez was winning the round convincingly up until that point.
But that's what I'm saying. You're okay. You win a round 10-9, right? Lopez was winning the round. If there was no knockdown, Lopez would have won the round 10-9. We agree?
I think so. But if there's a knockdown scored by the opponent, in Kambosos in this case, maybe they would have felt if it was Lopez winning so convincingly that it was even more than a 10-9 round. I don't think so.
No, it was a 10-9.
Yes.
So because of the knockdown, they swing that the other way by 2 points. They go, instead of going 10-10, because saying, look, he scored a knockdown. So he lost the round, but the knockdown scores him an extra point. So now the round finishes 10-10. He salvaged the round with the knockdown. Instead, they go 2 points the other way and award the round to Kambosos.
But not the same way that most judges would, which would have been 10-8 Kambosos.
But 10-8 means you win the round, plus you scored a knockdown.
I agree, Russ, but we've seen in boxing a lot of times where the fighter doesn't win the round, but because he scored the knockdown, they give him 10-8 anyways.
But this is what I'm saying. This is my point. This is case in point of how there's a problem with the scoring of a knockdown.
Okay, but how does it get to 10-7? That's what I don't understand. Why did you bring up 10-7?
Because in this point, in this example, is that a guy was losing the round and was awarded 2 points for scoring a knockdown.
Yes.
Therefore, if a knockdown is worth 2 points, if you're winning a round 10-9, you're already winning the round, and you score a knockdown, why is that knockdown also not worth 2 points?
It's good. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think they look at it necessarily as a 2-point swing. They just look at it as round one.
Linares and Lomachenko, perfect case in point. Lomachenko dominates, I think it's the 6th or 7th round, 6th round, dominates the round. Linares wins it 10-8 because he scored a flash knockdown.
That's different because that
was a 3-point swing. That went from
they don't look at it, Russ, as a 3-point swing. They look at it as you won the round plus the knockdown. In the case of Kambosos, they just looked at the knockdown, meaning you won the round. I know what you mean with the mathematics of it, but I don't think that's the way they look at it. Because in that case, like you said, if Lopez was winning the round and scored the knockdown, then he should have been awarded 10-7. If it's worth 2 points. Nobody looks at it that way. Or what do you think?
That's what I'm saying is the flaw. Now, one judge proved that it was a 3-point swing. He scored the round 10-8 for Kambosos. He scored a 10-8 round in a round that I don't think out of all the rounds in that fight, besides the 10th round, out of all the rounds, that was clearly a Lopez round. Was it not?
Yeah, there's others. I thought he did very good before the 10th round, and then 11-12, Kambosos came back. But yes, I agree. The first round was clear. Lopez win up until that knockdown.
So one judge went from a 10-9 round with a few seconds left to go in the fight. It was a 10-9 round up until that flash knockdown. That turned into a 10-8 round. That's a 3-point swing on one punch.
So what are you proposing? Are you gonna reform the universal judges book there? Because usually it's the 10-10 argument. Then there's also a 10-point must system. So there could be theoretically more 10-7 rounds given with knockdowns throughout. Is that what you want to see, or you're just saying there's no consistency?
There's no consistency is what I'm saying. And there's we've become accustomed. We've been accustomed and brainwashed into thinking that a knockdown is an automatic 10-8 round.
Yeah.
So I think if we're going to use a point system, and I'm not saying this is the right way, okay?
But knockdowns need to be encouraged to make it different depending on the strength of the knockdown, no?
Of course it does. The quality of the knockdown has to count. But if you're going to use a point system, use the points. But no one's going to do that. They're not going to do it, okay? Because at the end of the day, you can batter a guy from pillar to post. You don't knock him down, it's a 10-9 round. That's a round, it's a 10-9. So I think we need to go back to winning rounds. Who wins rounds? You score it by rounds, but then you get a +1, +2, +3 on rounds that you score a knockdown. So at the end, if you come out with 6 rounds apiece, but you have 2 pluses on your side because you scored 2 knockdowns, you win the fight.
That is an interesting concept. Wasn't there a system similar to that a long, long time ago?
Of course there was, but boxing showed of course there was, but boxing in its infinite wisdom found a way to screw that up, right? So we come up with a 10-point must system, but we don't use the 10 points. We use 9. We use 1 point. It's a 1-point system, and then what we do every knockdown, the first knockdown is if you're winning the round, if you've won a round, knockdowns are worth a point each. So if you score 1 knockdown, you get a 10-8 round. If you score 2 knockdowns, you get a 10-7. But if you're on the losing end of the round, suddenly a knockdown is worth 2 points to you.
I know, I get what you're saying, but I think
you have to get what I'm saying. Don't make me come over there and slap you if you don't understand as well, because
no. I understand perfectly what you're saying. What I'm trying to say is that I don't think people view it as the point swing system. They just view it as, oh, now he won the round because he scored the knockdown. So that's why they just scored 10-9. They don't look at it as point mathematics.
And you know what? You could conceivably have that happen. For example, me and you are fighting, boom. You're winning the round, but it's not a dominating, you're winning. Boom, you hit me a couple of jabs, caught me with the right hand, boom, a hook, boom, I didn't do much, right? You're winning the round. And I hit you with a hellacious shot that crushes you, man. I mean, crushes you. And you have to pick that value of that knockdown could be worth enough to win a round. My one punch was worth more than your few little tippy taps, okay? So evaluating the knockdown is important. I don't think that knockdown, I don't think the knockdown that James DeGale scored against Badou Jack in the first round, in which Badou Jack was winning the first round, it was a little off-balance shot that sat him on the seat of his pants. He jumped back up. Lomachenko jumped back up before the ref could send Linares to the neutral corner. That's how quick it was. There has to be value. You can't treat every knockdown with the same. It's the quality of the punch and how it lands that determines what you should get on the points. That's important. Not, his glove touched the floor, a little off balance. Knockdown, touch the floor. 1, 2. 10-8. What do you mean 10-8? The other guy's rocked all over. It's 10-8 as well. Doesn't make sense.
I'm glad I got you riled up. I haven't seen you this angry since talking about Big C's in Montreal. But anyways, I'm going to get to it because we're on a tangent a little bit here. Let's get to the lightweight picture. Now that Kambosos has this impressive victory, he's now the head honcho at 135. But Loma now is right back in the picture, depending on the result against Comey in a few weeks, which you'll be in the corner of. Lopez, all indications that he's not going to have a rematch with Kambosos. He's going to go up to junior welterweight at 140. There could be some big fights, of course, for him, including one against Josh Taylor. There's been back and forth between the two. I'd like to see that fight happen. Now, this weekend, though, first, there's Devin Haney versus Jojo Diaz, who are two legitimate top five lightweights. And on Sunday, you have the knockout artist, Gervonta Davis, fighting the replacement Isaac Cruz, which I think could be a sleeper fight where people think, oh, it's an easy walk-in fight for Davis. I'm not saying it's going to be Andy Ruiz, Anthony Joshua 1 again, but I think Isaac Cruz could give Davis problems. So let's get to Haney-Diaz first, though. I really believe this is a top fight based on Haney's performance against Jorge Linares in his last fight. And Jojo Diaz, to me, looked really good against Javier Fortuna at 135. Do you have a strong feeling either way of where this fight's going to end up?
I think both are legitimate fights and both underdogs have a shot. But I think, I'm sorry?
I would say especially Jojo Diaz.
Yeah, maybe. But Devin Haney's a talented kid. Don't think he's not. He's a talented kid and he takes it seriously. He makes up for whatever flaws he may have. He makes up for it with being smart, understanding the game, watching, knowing what he does, prepares well. You never get the impression that he's coming in overconfident. You know what I mean? Like he respects who he's fighting. So I think he's going to treat Jojo Diaz with the respect. I think Jojo Diaz earns that. And I think it's a tough fight for him too, because Devin Haney can be very, very devastating. I was at the fight when he knocked out, was a vicious,
Devin Haney, when he had the big one-punch knockout on the zone a few years ago.
I was like right at ringside, and I was like literally 3 feet from the knockout.
Yeah, I think it was Zaur Abdullaev who he had knocked out in 2019. I believe that was the fight in the 4th round knockout because it was at Madison.
No, it was a Mexican kid.
Oh, so Antonio Moran?
Maybe. That would that have been around a 7th round knockout?
Yes, exactly. Why were you at that fight?
I don't know. I have somebody there. I don't know why I was there. I'm
gonna try and find out.
I don't remember why I met places. I just know I was there. I was there.
Yeah, so hasn't had a big knockout like that since. He hasn't showed that one-punch power.
No, but doesn't mean it didn't leave. It didn't go away. It's still there somewhere. So it often depends on the fighters you're fighting. But he's a good fighter. I think both fights are outstanding fights, and I think hopefully this is a sign that the best are going to want to get the mix on. And, Loma has to get by Comey. If everybody's expecting it, if everyone's going to treat it that, oh, if he doesn't blast Comey out in 2 rounds, it means he's not as good as Lopez was. That's garbage, right? Let's put that out there right away. So I'm expecting a great fight there. And I hope, I'm praying that it's Kambosos versus Loma in Australia, so Loma has a chance to regain his titles. That would be.
You think Loma would be willing to go to Australia to fight Kambosos?
100%.
Wow. That would be a massive fight. And Loma, I think, should be a favorite against Kambosos, depending on the performance against Comey.
This is going to be maybe the only time in history when a unified champion could likely go into 3 fights in his weight category and be the underdog in 3 different occasions, right? Like Kambosos is not going to go in as a heavy favorite against anybody, but that's okay. That's okay. The kid comes to fight. He believes in himself. He's got a great team around him. I got all the respect in the world for them, but I hope this is an opportunity. I hope this doesn't splinter the belts. I hope this doesn't end up splintering the belts by saying, I'm not fighting him. No, I won't do that. Give up this belt, splinter it all again. And then everyone starts competing again for it and nobody wants to fight the best. I hope, to me, the fight to be made, Kambosos versus Loma, because you're the guy that beat the guy that beat Loma. And you're the guy that beat the guy that beat Loma. That's the biggest challenge you can make. And I hope that will get done.
And Kambosos was on record this week saying that he's going to be ringside for Haney-Diaz, and he's going to pay close attention to Loma Comey, and that he feels now with all the belts, he's going to make a decision based on the winners of those 2 bouts, who he's going to fight next.
There's a lot of things that are going to come into question. Devin Haney's got a lot of money behind him, with the DAZN contract. Loma's got ESPN and Top Rank behind him. So I think at the end of the day, it comes down to who can bring the most money to the table.
Well, it also maybe gives an advantage to the winner of Haney-Diaz, not in terms of money, but the network's affiliation is going to be easier for DAZN to try to piggyback that fight instead of having to make a deal with ESPN and Top Rank.
Good point. Yeah.
The marketing aspects, of course, of boxing. Now, I just want to get to 2019 here. I'm interested in trying to find out who the heck you were in the corner of. Or in this fight that Devin Haney scored a knockout against Antonio Moran, the 1-punch knockout in Maryland. You had Jessica McCaskill against Anihi Sanchez on the undercard. Yeah, you had the heavyweight Philip Horvich against Gregory Corbin. Yeah. Michael Hunter against Maldonado.
Yeah.
You had Yelusinov against Nora Muna. You had Mac Allison against Luis Gerardo and Rafael Garcia against Lorenzo Simpson. I don't think you were in the corner of any of these fights, Russ.
I'm trying to.
So I think you're talking about the fight against Abdullah. But anyways, in 20.
No. I think I was there. Name me the 2 Russian names that you said.
All right, hold on. Give me a second here. This is what we're doing with live podcasting. Okay. I can't come up with, for whatever reason, it's not reloading right now, but nevertheless, you believe you're in Maryland in 2019 for Devin Haney's knockout.
I don't believe. I know I was there. I guarantee 1,000% you can confirm it at the office tomorrow.
I just named you all the fights on the card, and you can't remember who you worked the corner.
I said I think it was one of those 2 Russian guys. One of the
okay. Yeah. So. Yeah. How many? That's when you know you've been into a lot of corners in your professional life, right? Because most people, it's like a memory that it's not easy to forget about. But when you've been in over, how many? You think you've been in 1,000 pro corners at this stage, or only in the hundreds?
Has to be thousands.
Probably, right?
Has to be. How can it not be? But maybe it is. I don't know, but it has to be. Jeez.
Yeah, we're gonna have to find some historians to look it up one of these days. Okay, so Gervonta Davis on Sunday against Isaac Cruz. Gervonta Davis was supposed to fight Romero first. Romero has legal issues. He's out of the question, out of the picture today. So now Cruz comes in. Davis is the big puncher. A lot of people are excited to see what he's going to do and when he's going to have the big fight. But he's the one who's probably had the less big names on his record compared to the other lightweights. The Oleksandr Cruz win, of course, was a big name, but Oleksandr Cruz was much smaller, had more success at featherweight than he did at lightweight. So do you expect a big knockout, or do you think this could be troublesome for Davis if he kind of...
Listen, even if there is a quick knockout, it's going to be exciting for the short time it lasts because Isaac Cruz also can whack a little. So I think it'll be exciting, you know, like, I mean, I think Davis has to be very careful. You know, Davis, okay, you'll be the favorite going in, no problem. But Isaac Cruz can punch and can fight a little as well. So, you know,
look at Isaac Cruz, Russ, just for the record here, the last fights, he's on a heck of a tear here. He won against Francisco Vargas in his last fight by decision. He defeated Jose Matias Romero, who was undefeated, by decision. He knocked out Diego Maldonado in the first round. So look,
and that was like, I saw that fight. That was like a blast out, you know, like it was. He did what Teofimo tried to do to Kambosos. He just walked across the ring and whack, 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 just crushed him. You know, like Maldonado had absolutely no answer for what was coming back and then knocked him cold. So, yeah.
No, so I'm really excited about that one. It's a Sunday night pay-per-view. So Gervonta Davis, of course, though, depending on the result, there's always talks about him against Ryan Garcia. That's kind of the two more high-profile lightweights in terms of social media and some of the new age fans who they revolved around. But do you think Tank Davis, outside of Loma, that you work with, Vasiliy Lomachenko, would you think right now is second best in the lightweight picture? Is it Kambosos by virtue of defeating Lopez? Do you think it's Tank Davis? Do you think it's Ryan Garcia? Do you think it's either Haney? Do you have or is it too early to say and they got to fight each other to play it out?
I think it's very close either way. I think there's a lot of different dynamics that come into play. You know, Tank really can be special, you know, like if his work ethic keeps up, you know, and he has that belief that he wants to crush guys, he's a special fighter. He might be the most special of the gang. Okay. Ryan Garcia also has some good talent and some good power, but it looks like he as well is not willing to make the commitments that are supposed to be made. Devin Haney may be, I don't want to say weaker is not the right word, but weaker but he makes up for it in his determination, in his work ethic, you know, in the people that surround him. He has good people around him. He goes to different gyms. He seeks out different advice. His father is very open to that, to gaining advice and information from other people. I think all of these things make for a really interesting matchup. But what this has to show, and this has to come true to, I don't want to say to save boxing, but to prove that boxing will put the best against the best, is that these guys have to fight each other. They're in a position now. I can't remember last time when a division was that loaded that they could fight each other. And there's so many, and it's not matchups where, you know, one guy's going to win all the way. You know, it's,
no. Toss-ups.
It's toss-ups.
Well, to me, I remember the welter. There's been a lot of times in boxing where this has happened. The welterweights in an era where you had Paul Williams, Antonio Margarito, Shane Mosley, Floyd Mayweather. There was a lot of, you know, Miguel Cotto. There's a lot of possible big. But yeah, so it's exciting. It's a good step, though, what we saw last week with Lopez and, of course, Kambosos. Now this weekend, Haney, Jojo Diaz, I think is a very legitimate fight. And if we can get Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis and these others to partake, Loma, we know, is going to fight anybody. One of the final things I want to ask you tonight, Russ, was Loma or anybody from the boxing world, did they give you any feedback based on Lopez's performance against Kambosos, or say, hey, this is interesting for Loma now? It kind of opens the door, because Lopez was very stubborn about the fact that even if he had defeated Kambosos, he was never going to give Loma a rematch.
I don't want to, I texted Lomachenko right after the fight. We exchanged texts. I don't want to share what was said between us. Yes, we spoke about it. And I, you know, let Lomachenko get through this fight this weekend with Comey. One thing that the boxing world should be asking itself is Lopez came off arguably one of the greatest wins in boxing history, you know, like a great win over Lomachenko. You beat the guy, right? You beat the best guy in the world, the most gifted, talented fighter. It's like beating, it was like when Montel beat Roy Jones, you know, like, I mean, he got on a disqualification, but, you know, you beat the best guy in the world. And as a result of that, you didn't fight for a year. And then when you came back, you know, you had all kinds of promotional issues, fights canceled, COVID, so many things, everything that could go wrong went wrong for you. And then you lose to Kambosos. So you didn't fight for a year after the biggest win of your career. What happens now going forward after a loss?
Mm. Yeah, well, that definitely, you're going to learn more about yourself after a loss than after a win. That's for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, Russ, final thoughts on the weekend? Looking forward to going to the pool hall, I assume?
I am indeed, and I'm excited to be going to New York and seeing all the boys at Steinway's, and I'm looking forward to that. And big new year coming up is going to be extremely busy. And right after Loma, we've got Beterbiev in Montreal, so we'll be talking about that. So things don't seem to be slowing down one bit. They seem to be picking up, and I'm excited about it. And you know, the fight, I hope young fighters learn from what happened in the Kambosos-Lopez fight. I hope Lopez learns from it. You know, Kambosos, he followed the battle plan, you know, and anything is possible. When you prepare yourself, when you believe, when you do the right things and you do the work in the gym, you know, good things happen. And I think that was proof in what Kambosos did. And you can't, just because you beat a great guy, doesn't mean that everyone else is just going to fall over out of fear because you won that fight. You know, they're going to be watching you more. They're going to be careful more. They're going to bring their, not just their A game, they're going to bring their double A game against you because they know how good you are. And that's the respect that you garnish from beating great fighters. You have to live up to that greatness by preparing as if you're fighting another great fighter. I think it's fair to say that the Lopez that fought Loma, that went into the ring, and I saw him, I was there the whole week with him, that was focused, you know, composed, confident, came out in a smart, respected way and let his talent speak, I think spoke volumes to what the guy who came out against Kambosos. So I think this is a very, very important lesson that young fighters should learn.
Very well said. Russ, have a great evening. Thank you, everyone, again, for tuning in to another edition of Calling Russ Anber. And Russ, enjoy the fights, and we'll touch base, of course, next week.
And maybe a special guest next week. Maybe a very, very cool thing next week. I hope I can make it happen.
Okay, perfect. Cliffhanger, as they say. We'll talk more, Russ. Have a good evening.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.